to be recorded. If you don't feel comfortable to be recorded, you can switch off your camera. So welcome to ICAT global webinar, Art-Based Research, the art of using arts as primary mode of inquiry honoring the work of Shaun McNiff. This is the second webinar of ICAT Research and Arts series, which was launched in January 2022. Many thanks to our board member, Dr. Vivian Spicer and Dr. Michal Lev to create such wonderful series. This series presents cutting-edge research ideas, projects, and methodologies that are taking place today. It is joined by the leaders and pioneers in the field who address key aspects of using arts in research, their philosophical approaches and foundations, fundamental ideas, and also controversies that rise from such research approaches. I'd like to invite you to follow and participate in our series. After today's webinar, we will have the next one in March on arts-based and embodied leadership development in education. Then one in April on the 4 pillars of research and arts: performance as research, art-based research, arts-informed research, and artistic research. We'll also have a great self-care series, very likely every month, offered by our organizational members around the world. If you want to be part of this amazing community, please go to our website, www.icat.org, to get registered to benefit from ICAT membership. Today's webinar is to honor the work of Professor Shaun McNiff. I have the great honor to work with Shaun since 2015, who became the first editor-in-chief of our journal, CAT, Creative Arts, Education and Therapy, Eastern and Western Perspective. In recent years, Dr. Deborah Kamalovich joined us as a co-editor-in-chief. We are very grateful to Shaun and Deborah for their commitment and contribution that have brought the journal to its status and standing in the field. Now, on behalf of ICAT and ICAT and CAET, I would like to give the Distinguished Service Award to Shaun McNiff and Deborah Kalamovitz. First, the award to Deborah, BAT registered artist and art therapist who have worked with trauma, political violence, and social changes globally, as well as with refugees and torture survivors in London and Hong Kong. She's a professional advisor for international NGO I8, working in Liberia, focused on gender-based violence, and the clinical leader for London-based NGO Refugees Trauma Initiative, RTI, working in Greece refugees crisis. She teaches at the Academic College of the Social Society and the Arts, ASA Israel. She is a co-author of several books, including the edited book of Art Therapy Asia, To Be to the Bone or Wrapped in Silk. Deborah has worked closely with the CAT editorial board to publish past issues of journal and also co-edited Hong Kong special issue in 2020. I'm very pleased by your passion and hard work and intelligence, Deborah, and thank you for bringing so much value to CAT and the wonderful collaboration these years, which I truly enjoy. I'm pleased to give the Distinguished Service Award to Dr. Deborah Kamalovitz. Congratulations, Deborah.
Thank you, Tony. It's great to see you. It's been an absolute pleasure to work on the journal for the last 5 years. Over these years, we've managed to access authors and publish articles which exposed readers to a perspective which celebrates the richness of collaboration between cultures and traditions and philosophies, with an inquisitiveness and a depth. I've learned an invaluable amount from working with you, Tony and Shaun, and I'm happy to have the opportunity, very happy to have had this opportunity to contribute to the journal at these initial stages. So I'd like to quote, when science turned away from spirit, its mission dramatically changed. Instead of trying to understand the natural order so that human beings could live in harmony with that order, modern science embarked on a goal of control and domination. Of Bruce Lipton, an American developmental biologist, noted for his views on epigenetics from his book, The Biology of Belief. And these words synthesize an aspect of our initial aims for CAET, and I believe are deeply understood by all three of us, Shaun, Tony, and myself. Shaun McNiff has indeed worked towards keeping the spirit of art therapy alive, and we see this in his teachings and writing on art making, on art therapy, and on art-based research for many years, and certainly since I was exposed to them when I was studied with Shaun over 30 years ago. This webinar on arts-based research is only one of the exciting webinars of ICATE that they're organizing, and very close to my heart. For as for many, the notion and the capacity of art as a way of generating information took me quite some time to appreciate it, and demanded that I dismantle the paradigms that had been passed on to me. While I understood this intuitively, and I worked on understanding it experientially, it was my exploration alongside working and reading the ideas of Shaun and others that have undoubtedly helped me to be able to understand arts-based research with clarity and precision. Rigor is not generally associated with arts-based research, but it is important in all research, and no less here. And the arts can have a role in all aspects and stages of research. They can inform our research process, they can enhance our information gathering, make accessible understanding that is implicit and not yet explicit, allow us to hold on to multiple dimensions and potential and dynamic of an experience, thereby generating information and multiple ways of knowing, and only then transforming it into a single story as presented by findings. So I very much look forward to learning from the presentations today, and thank Tony for the opportunity he has given me to contribute to CAET, and Shaun for the years and years of inspiration, not only in arts-based research, but in all aspects of my art therapy practice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you so much again. So next, we would like to give the word to Professor Shaun McNiff, who you all know, who is a pioneer and one of the founders in expressive art therapies in the world. And he is the author of numerous books and articles, and his work has been inspiring and is influencing many of us. Shaun established the first integrated arts in therapy and education graduate training program at Leicester University, from which the field of expressive art therapy emerged. Shaun has received various honors and awards, including the Lifetime Achievement Award of the JAAH Journal and the Honorary Life Member Award of the American Art Therapy Association. I still remember when I first contacted Shaun, we had the chemistry right away, since we greatly share our mission and vision. I admire his huge interest and knowledge in China, which formed the bone of the CAET Journal from the very beginning. Shaun was very generous to share his passion, knowledge with me and the team, and he has been my colleague as well as my mentor. Working with you is very inspiring, and I'm truly grateful for your dedicated work and support all these years, Shaun. From this year, CAET will have a new team of co-editors However, Shaun and I are still working together on some other projects related to China. He and Deborah will remain as a valuable resource for CET Journal. I'm glad we are still together to hold our Eastern and Western perspectives, and now expanded to global perspective via IACAT, and most importantly, keep our faith in arts and humanity to advance our work together, as Shaun and we have been always advocating. I'm pleased to give the Distinguished Service Award to Professor Shaun McNiff. Congratulations, and thank you so much for the amazing work and tremendous contribution to our journey and community, Shaun.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. Would you like me to say, is this the time now for me to speak?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Tony, and welcome to everybody here. And I was asked to make some introductory comments about art-based research in terms of the session that we're having today. The first thing I do want to say, though, is I want to acknowledge, Tony, the work that we've done since 2015 together in establishing the journal, Creative Arts in Education and Therapy, and how I do miss, it's been about 6 months now where I don't have my 6 or 7 morning emails from Tony at the first thing greeting me as I get up in the morning. And then we were fortunate to recruit Deborah, whose work I've just profoundly admired over the years, her many books and her her work, especially with her book Art Therapy in Asia, as we were establishing a journal looking at East-West perspectives and global understanding. It was just a huge coup to have Deborah joining us. I really want to make comments now about 2 principles, one of which is the founding of the journal, and how that relates to my lifelong commitment to an integral approach to all forms of human expression as part of an interdependent human community. And I want to say this as clearly as I can, especially in this era, when this era of myopia meaning, look it up, nearsightedness, that when you study things outside of your own experience, you are somehow or other appropriating the experiences of other people. As one of my childhood heroines, Brenda Lee, said recently, it's in terms of how the arts cross over and constantly influence each other. As Brenda Lee said, it's all, and she said in her Southern accent, it's all intertwined. It's all intertwined. Everything is connected to everything else. Anything good crosses over. And as M.C. Richards said in her magnificent book, Centering, published in my youth, ideas cannot be possessed. They cannot be owned. They are part of an interdependent human community. And that was why I got involved in this journal, and I wish it well in continuing. The second point, today's focus on art-based research. I need to spend a couple of minutes dealing with issues of definition, because it is constantly misunderstood and confused with other things. Art-based research, and Ross will probably talk about this, as per Suzanne K. Langer, there is only one word for dancing, playing the violin, writing poetry, painting pictures, and that word is art. Therefore, we talk about art-based research as a way, once again, of uniting and bringing together in a common enterprise and not splitting and separating into what I call, as it applies today in the social sciences, what I call the era of research disorders, with 1,001 different types and flavors of social science research. When I wrote the first book on art-based research in 1998, I said, I'm reluctantly giving it a name. I have to name it so it can have a place in the discourse, but there's a huge shadow to giving anything a name. I think about research as research, one word, disciplined inquiry. The unique thing about art-based research is it brings a major paradigm shift. Best described by our next speaker, Ross Pryor. A major paradigm shift best described as the empirical use of art as research. The empirical use of art, artistic expression, as I said, as I defined the work, art-based research is the use of art as a primary mode of inquiry by the person doing the research, either alone, which is a great interest of mine, or together with others. It is a simple paradigm. What it is not a particular method. Methods go into infinity, as with art, as my PhD advisees can emphasize here. We always talk about what's the issue, what's the thing you want to examine, and how are you going to do it? We never use fixed methods. So I do disagree with the forthcoming session here describing art-based research as one of 4 pillars of something or other. That's not what it's all about. There are infinite methodologies. I've never, ever worked to develop a method of practice. That's your job. Whoever's doing the research, you design your method. What we do is use art as the mode of inquiry, and that is a major paradigm shift. As Ross will probably say, it's a major paradigm shift because historically art's been used as data in the social sciences and analyzed and according to a very fixed method of practice, and then the results are then translated into something other than art itself. In art-based research, as Ross will say today, art is the focus, it's the topic, art is used, art making is used as the process of inquiry. And then perhaps most radically of all, the work is then presented, the third point of Ross's trinity, through artistic evidence. I'll never forget the conference in Shropshire where Mitchell led the whole conference group in a chant at the end of the conference, art is the evidence. We're not a cult. We're simply trying to restore the transcultural continuities of artistic inquiry and how that moves the human race forward. Now, in terms of my particular future moving forward, now that I'm free of academic institutions where you have to plan a research project in advance, and I supported that because otherwise you can very much get lost. And but as I think Dina perhaps maybe will show you today, the best things happen outside of our plans. So my hope for the future is that now that I'm completely liberated from American psychological format standards and dissertation fixities, that I can return to my deep passion of what I'm describing as natural experiments, how art emerges, as Nietzsche said, as a healing sorceress throughout history, and particularly when all else failed. What unplanned happenings, the best things happened, as I wrote in art-based research. So I'm really looking forward to a future where I can do that and being, as I said, liberated from the fixities of method. So anyway, God, as Tiny Tim said in Dickens' great book, God bless us everyone, and on with the events. Thank you. Oh, by the way, thanks for the award. But I didn't say that. Thank you. I appreciate it. I know, Vivian, you had something to do with this. So anyway, anyway, thank you to you and Tony and the new organization. I wish you the best with all my heart. But remember, art-based research is forget about that term. Just throw it away for now. Let's just look at Ross's empirical use of artistic expression as a mode of inquiry. No acronyms, no 26 different 4 or 5. It's an all-inclusive process. Bye.
Thank you, Shaun. Thank you, Shaun, and congratulations again to you and to Deborah. One of the many things I love about you, Shaun, in the 45 years that I've been a companion to you in this work is your absolute consistency from the get-go. When I met you, you were in your mid-20s. I was slightly younger, but pretty close to you at that point. And already you'd spawned this community and it was a very experimental community back in the day, but you'd spawned this community which had stretched to become an international community. Soon after that, people like Philip spread it to Sweden, I spread it to Israel, and so the story went. But you were completely consistent from the get-go. And from the very beginning, the things that I have retained from this long acquaintanceship with you is, first of all, trust the process. There wasn't a program yet, but we were acting as if there was, and there was. And why there was is because of your trust in the creative process from the get-go. You trusted in the creative process. And whenever we encountered obstacles and difficulties, which are so inevitable in doing this work, you said, conflict defines. And I've seen you carry that over into the work that you've done with art-based research. Back in that, I think the 90s, you became you wrote your seminal book. You became one of the leading authorities in this work, and it was completely consistent. And it's in the process of doing this kind of research that you encounter the obstacles, the challenges. You have to overcome them and figure out a way to make sense and meaning from the work. So you have, throughout all of these years that I've known you, you've continued to do that for me, for yourself, and for all of us. So I'm very grateful to you. And the bridge between you and the way that the work continues is with the colleague I'm about to introduce now, our dear friend, Mitchell Kozak. And Mitchell, as well as being a Renaissance man and a force of nature, like Shaun, Mitchell is currently coordinating the expressive therapy core group and the specialization at Leicester University. With me, he's co-director of the Institute for Arts and Health. He's associate editor of the Journal of Applied Arts and Health, and more and more. But at this point, I turn you over to Mitchell Kozak. So Mitchell, where are you?
I'm over here, thank you. I am going to do something first. Give me 1 second to get this out of the way. Here we go. I went down to the crossroads, got down on my knees. I went down to the crossroads, got down on my knees. Yeah, I asked the Lord above, won't you help me please? Well, some say Robert Johnson sold his soul to the devil. But I would say that Robert Johnson gained his soul, reclaimed his soul, and gave us the blues. He gave us the blues for us not just to enjoy, but to feel something deeply. So, in the same way, our dear friend Shaun, seen here in 1974, also, I think, reclaimed his soul and gave us something to feel deeply and to think about deeply, which is this idea of, first of all, expressive therapies, which was not a thing, which was created by Shaun, and later on, arts-based research. So in 1972, having left law school, gone off to be a painter in New York City, and later found himself working at Danvers State Hospital, one of the oldest state psychiatric hospitals, I think in the country at the time, been around for a very long time. And he started doing art with the patients in the hospital. And he began to bring his patients to the Addison Gallery of American Art. And these were the first art-based research experiments. He says that while encountering the stigma of mental illness, the exhibition emphasized how art can heal in every person's life. And the Boston Globe, who picked up on the art exhibit, said, "The images eloquently testify to the degree in which practicing an art can temper and affect the chaos of experience." The art was the evidence, is the evidence, was always the evidence. Shaun just found a way to begin to frame it. And these are some of the paintings from that time of the patients that he worked with. These were the experiments. This was the method beginning to develop. The art show was awarded a grant by the Massachusetts Council for the Arts and Humanities to travel to museums and university galleries throughout the Northeastern United States. And the dean of the Graduate School of Lesley College, now University, saw the show when he was visiting Harvard University in 1973. He was moved so much that he invited Shaun to start the graduate program that has since thrived in the arts and therapy, health, and education. So the art evidence that he showed spoke forcefully to the dean at the graduate school. It was convincing. It was the evidence. Shaun says, as Jung suggests, a better understanding of inner process will benefit what we do in the outer world of therapeutic practice. So art in the service of others was always Shaun's mission in this work, not for himself, but for others, for the greater world. He says, imaginative compassion for that which is other than myself is a constant artistic and ethical discipline. You see Shaun always, this is a typical image of Shaun working with other people. His deep commitment and interest in others and doing the work not just for the moment, but for the larger construct of how it affects humanity. The original word empathy, from the German Einfühlung, means to be moved physically and emotionally by a piece of art. This is at the root of our work, no matter what we do. Empathy, moved deeply by the work. Art moves us emotionally as the evidence if we can present it in a way that is clear and concise. And as Deborah said, with rigor. Shaun says, with my first art therapy experiences, I kept records of art expressions and made detailed and systemic notes documenting what we did in sessions and how people responded. This was the beginning of the method, of the research. Arts-based inquiry, it's what we do. This is something I wrote from being inspired by Shaun's work. It's a chapter I wrote in a book that Ross and Shaun put together. Dialoguing with images. In his books, Depth, Psychology of Art, and Art and Medicine, we are in communion with not just other people, but also with artistic expressions, materials, and processes. Even when creating alone, the work is thoroughly interactive. The art itself, the materials, have a voice, have a life. We need to tune into it. This was Shaun's message back in 1989, a long time ago. The art, and all the committees that I served on with doctoral committees with Shaun, I always like to bring up to him, what about the art? What's the art? What about the art? What's the art saying? Why are we using clay here? Why are we using paint? Why are we using watercolor? What is it about the material? 1998, arts-based research came out, and as Shaun just said, it's a systemic and sustained process of investigation where research and research gather information, facts, insights, and evidence, compare options, conduct experiments to improve the way we do things, to understand experience, to consider the possible causes and sources of actions, including problems and difficulties, make discoveries. This is the rigor, formulate ideas of the nature of things. This is the method that each person utilizes. This is just the frame that Shaun puts out. And the distinctive feature of arts-based research, as he writes, is the realization that artistic expression offers modes of communication and understanding that is inaccessible to linear and logical reason and language alone. And in the practice, the objects, the art objects themselves and the expressive actions, maybe it's movement, maybe it's drama, are compromised and lessons when we reduce them, as he said a minute ago, to data. The art object is a living and expressive entity, like another person, that holds complexities and change and infinitely variable possibilities of new relationships. It's like meeting another person, as he always says. We don't say what, he always came to my classes and said, we don't say what are you? We say to another person, we say, who are you? Tell me about yourself. Same with the arts. He took his law degree, his law studies, and he applied it in his writings and his approach. He says the process is not unlike legal advocates making arguments to persuade jurors to see evidence in a certain way. The burden of proof with regard to complex life experiences is not simply connected to presenting information. It has to do with the presenting the evidence in a convincing way, as Deborah alluded to. We have to present it in a convincing way. This is so important in our work. When we do, people get it all the time. And as his mentor, Rudolf Arnheim, said, we need to write as if we can smell the studio. And I always love this, that what Shaun said, that in this work of arts-based research, we're not looking at data and themes. We're looking at characteristics, features, aspects, principles, ideas, patterns, structures, designs, compositions, similarities, and differences. So it's not that art-based research is open to all kinds of patterns and structures, essential elements, forces, energies, factors that are inherent to the art and beyond the scope of them alone. Now, his new thing in the last number of years that I've been on many committees with him and have utilized in my own doctoral work, which Shaun was a committee member, is this idea of using digital film as a way to present the evidence. You could see here, you'll see this later in McCall's work. He loves this idea of utilizing GoPro cameras, as you see up here, because the GoPros really capture as if you're right there. And he likes to say to his students to create a 5 to 7 minute edited video that presents the evidence, and you need to present the evidence as if you're a filmmaker. There are good films and there are bad films. Let's make some good films, because that's when the evidence really matters. It's when we remember those films that touch us. So artistic inquiry, research, whatever you want to call it, is larger than qualitative or quantitative research as defined within the social science community. It is unto itself. It is the evidence. It is indigenous, as Shaun says, to what we do. Why are we playing around with other kinds of so-called methodologies? So we know how many books Shaun has written. These are just some of them, all with his ideas leading up to this, his ideas about art and research. and the many, many articles. I couldn't even fit all of them on one page. They go back from 1977, Motivation in Art, all the way up to a book that Ross and I and Teresa Fisher are putting together from that conference in Ironbridge on art-based research and its outcomes. This will come out sometime this year. And with that, this is Shaun's painting of the Iron Bridge in question here, and our dear friend Ross Pryor, who I am about to introduce. So thank you. This is, I am turning this over now to Ross Pryor, my good friend, editor of the Journal of Applied Arts and Health, which I am the associate editor for the past going on 12 years now. And he's also a professor at the University of Wolverhampton in the UK. So please take it away, Ross.
Thank you, Mitchell. Let's see. Wow, that's a hard act to follow, isn't it? And I should have worn the hat so people might recognize me. But anyway, that is, you've hit a lot of the points. Both you and Shaun have hit upon a number of the points that I'm certainly going to talk about now. But I'm also going to offer something a little new and a nuance to spice the day up a little bit. So it's an honor to be invited to speak, albeit briefly today, about Shaun McNiff's work. It's nice to be able to talk about someone before they're dead. So Shaun, you know, it's great you're here. You're here not only in spirit, but you're here physically, as physical as we can be in our virtual world. So I entitled this segment, Flying in the Slipstream with Shaun McNiff. And some of you, that allusion may resonate straight away, but I'll tease it out a little bit. Shaun's use of the evocative flock metaphor, that birds can fly further and faster together with a slipstream effect, prompts us to think about our collective endeavors. We, as the birds, we're the flock, a creative flock of artists, educators, and researchers. We're probably a pretty odd-looking flock, I must say, but we're a creative flock, each individual with their own characteristics and temperaments form a beautiful menagerie of expressive human beings. Slipstream is defined as an assisting force, and undoubtedly as a community committed to art-based research, we do assist each other in understanding, finding energy in both our practice and in our academic writing. Shaun very much gives us that energy. He believes in it, and therefore he conveys it perfectly to all of us. That slipstream, that assisting force, is evident in art-based research. We find all energy, both individually and as a group. Shaun talks about the common flow that carries everyone in it. He talks about the creative slipstream effect. And I think it's a beautiful metaphor to talk about what we're doing and doing together. What an incredible time we're living in. The last 2 years have been unprecedented in our lifetimes. And yet there's one thing that unites us, and that is that belief in the power of art. And we are up against it, as Shaun has said, and others will allude to, I'm sure, that there are researchers who constantly push against what is natural in what it is that we're doing. We're wanting to fragment the world and somehow atomize it in a way that is unhelpful in all sorts of ways. Now, I've been interested in methodology for many years, and I only wish that some of my students came to me with the same wild enthusiasm for methodology. And I can see perhaps why they don't have that initial enthusiasm for it. and possibly it's because of the experiences of the past that they've had with methodology and how it's taught to them. But once they get hold of what we're calling art-based research, they do see that it is natural and it makes sense of everything. We had the binary of qualitative and quantitative research for ever so long. Well, actually, we didn't have qualitative for very long in my lifetime. I remember that fight to try and get that put on the equal sort of stage as the quantitative. But now we have that third umbrella, which is artistic research. And all that we do fits under that umbrella quite nicely. We don't need to atomize beyond that. R. Buckminster Fuller, the American architect, systems theorist, author, and futurist, said, "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete." Shaun did it. And I hope he's winning the battle. I hope we're all winning that particular battle. So Shaun rose to the challenge, his challenge, and giving us art-based research. Art-based research is the empirical process of using art as research. Shaun explains, "I define art-based research as the use of artistic expression by the researcher, either alone or with others, as a primary mode of inquiry." What a wonderful, sharp, and perceptive sentence that is. We should write it out, put it above our beds, and look at it every night before we go to bed. What wonderful dreams we would have. So art is both the object of investigation and the method of inquiry. It's one of the same. We don't need to be separating art. Artistic objects are made the full participants in the research that we're doing. Shaun says art-based research involves reflection on the interplay between the mental motivations and the physical ones that appear through contact with the medium. He says it all. So given that our time is fairly limited here today, I just want to point to another author, John Eldredge, who's an American author again, counselor. He comes closest to the matter when he states, "We don't see clearly because we don't see the eyes of our heart." We don't see clearly because we don't see the eyes of our heart. Now, art can allow us to do that, and in ways that social science and scientific research doesn't necessarily do. And it depends, of course, the question that you're asking as to what methodology you're going to use. It's no good forcing the wrong key into the same lock. Just won't work. Shaun has been an incredible supporter of me and the work of many, many people. He certainly, as principal editor of the Journal of Applied Arts and Health, and Mitchell, as we've said, is my associate editor, and I'm terrifically grateful to him as well. And there are many people on this call who are board members of the Journal of Applied Arts and Health. And we're now in our 13th year, can you believe that? Ready to start our 14th year. Some people in the room don't look any older, which is great for them. Whatever they're on, we'll share it around. And we've had that common belief that art can provide the evidence in the work that we do. We don't need to reduce our art practice to a series of tables and figures and data that becomes meaningless and of no interest really to many people. Shaun, to return to the slipstream metaphor, I want to say that your enthusiasm creates for us a natural slipstream, brings us all together. and it gives us confidence, the confidence required to use art-based research. You are the wind beneath our wings, and you help us on that journey. I want to conclude with a poem that I wrote because I thought, look, we can't have a talk fest today. Mitchell's already set the bar pretty high with his incredible PowerPoint and opening song. Now, I'm not going to sing, which may be a relief to those of you who have heard me. So I wrote a little poem, and I've called it Art is the Evidence. Whilst art-based research is not a church, a founding voice guides our search. His name is Shaun McNiff, moving to his rhythmic riff. His djembe talks, his organ, the Mabira rocks, and we chorus with resonance, art is the evidence. For more than 50 years, Shaun steers and perseveres, fulfilling urges for creative expression. He gently guides the entire profession. From our distinct and individual interactions, results in art we make in simple abstractions. And we chorus with resonance, art is the evidence. Affirming a life and synergy, infusing us all with creative energy. Artistic expression renews the lost soul, reminding us art as research is the whole. Participation in the process surely reveals. Shaun confirms again, art heals. And we chorus with resonance, art is the evidence. Conte crayons or simple black markers, large pieces of paper ready for starters, allow movements to shape a composition. Let your actions lead with the mind, no inhibition. He says, if you can move, you can paint. Just make a gesture, repeat it, breathe, and don't faint. And we chorus with resonance for the final time, art is the evidence. Thank you all, and thank you, Shaun.
Thank you, Ross. Inspiration, indeed. Thank you for all of that and your poetry. We're going to move the program along right now. We're going to hear from some of Shaun's students who worked with him in the doctoral program, both in the Graduate School of Art and Social Sciences at Lesley and also in the School of Education. So I'm going to turn it over to Abby Miller, who's going to talk about her research a little bit. And Abby is a professor in the graduate art therapy program at Albertus Magnus College in Connecticut. So please take it away, Abby.
Thank you. And thank you to the IACAET for this invitation. I'm really thrilled to be here. And along with that metaphor that Ross just shared, when I think of a flock of birds, I also think about the ways in which they take turns with who is leading the V. And so I think of our presentations as students of Shaun's as stepping forward to lead the V, while also recognizing that a flock is behind us. So I'd like to share with you a little bit about my art-based research with Shaun as my chair advisor, art as the center of discovery and art-based distillation of the one canvas method. Okay. So I have gratitude for Shaun's vision and the richness of what art-based research can be. A distillation, an ongoing refining and discovery process through which outcomes emerge. The one canvas method, which was the heart of my research focus, is heavily oriented to an interplay between images that continually transform over time. Art-based inquiry explored how these images were created, then transformed, distilling what emerged. There was a continual return to the art as the center of discovery, and I was encouraged to refine the primacy of my artist self to foster empirical exploration that felt honest, alive, and generative. Indeed, human. And all of the artwork that you'll see and all of the videos were from this research. So briefly in review, the one canvas method, which you can read about, has 4 core components: art making over time on one surface, artistic and imaginative exploration that is emergent and evolving, the integral use of interim periods, which is the time between painting sessions, and the inclusion of continual visual documenting. So the research questions that led this inquiry: are there any qualities that are unique to this one canvas process? What were the therapeutic qualities of the interim periods? And could digital media that was being used to document this work further our appreciation and understanding of therapeutic arts modalities? 3 primary contributors to this distillation process. How did I glean the essence? These 3 qualities were required: that I could hold multiple perspectives of my whole body and multisensory observation, that my engagement was as a researcher participant, and that reflection with the participants was central, with art at the center. And this was done by using summary slideshows and videos. So as an example, this is what was depicted by one participant as a slideshow progression over 3 sessions of painting, each spaced a week apart. And you can see the dynamic, alive transformations. None of this was pre-planned. Organically, you feel as he felt. In contrast, the video that was made from GoPro camera, as well as a digital camera on a tripod, offered a different perspective, a different way of being with the art, listening, feeling, perceiving, noticing patterns, noticing color use, felt sense, expressions, myriad of dynamics that emerged spontaneously and often effortlessly. So the heart of distillation meant a review, a continued coming back to the art at the center, to recognizing, using my artistic sensibilities. In that way, editing the videos became a central art-based distillation process. Noticing what selections I would base was part of this process. And when I examined my own videos and photos, I also engaged my own reflections as an artist. This is a video showing you a clip of my own process in that experience. So those of you who create visual art or any art form can recognize being in the experience of the making is different than stepping aside and viewing. However, the constant mantra was how to unite these, how to connect these, how were they all speaking from a different perspective that could be used to create a whole. Any of the distillation that was done of the artwork carried 2 assumptions, which you heard both Shaun and Ross and Deborah speaking to, as well as Mitchell. The ways in which art making communicates is different from linear and logical comprehension and language, and that an aesthetic focus generates unique ways of understanding and creating knowledge. This was the heart of my art-based research. To give you a brief view of what it looked like when the participants viewed these videos, you can see on the left the final painting, and on the right, this participant watching the video of her art making, commenting on it as it was occurring, and then afterwards reflection about what happened. And this was a rigorous, repetitive process for every participant. So 4 outcomes emerged from this art-based research: that the one canvas method provided opportunity for the experience and continuous process of change and transformation, that there was an enhanced sense of the integral dynamic between new creations and the loss of previous ones, that the time between sessions was significant, and that digital media made notable contributions. So with art as the center, this art-based distillation of the one canvas method yielded these discoveries that the ongoing change process were unlike single session art therapy models. And the value of bringing our artist selves into the therapeutic work fostered our clients' identities as artists. Self-reflections went deep. There was a paradoxical aspect to the approach. There was continual experience of change and loss, death and birth, all at the same time. During periods of non-doing, much was happening. And the video review process showed great potential. So in closing, distilling the essence of artistic expression was discovery. Thank you so much, and I hope this gave you a glimpse into the experience and the feelings that get generated when art is at the center.
Thank you so much, Abby. It's great to see your work.
Thank you.
And the outcomes. I'm going to move things along and introduce Dory Brian Ployer, who is the artistic director of the Black Box Theater in Mansfield, Massachusetts, and she's going to talk about her work. Dory?
Hello. Let me make sure I'm unmuted. Can you hear me? Perfect. Let me just start this. Okay, before I begin, I'm just going to ask, because we are online and we're not sharing the same space, if we can all just take a deep breath in together and out together. And one more time, inhale and exhale. Thank you. That certainly helped me. So to begin, I'm honored to be here and share with you how art-based engagement answered my query about my experience and curiosity regarding the potential spiritual elements of the theatrical rehearsal process. My interest in the topic of spirituality in the theatrical rehearsal process stems from the spiritual nourishment I drew from years in the theater, particularly engagement in the rehearsal process. Over time, the theater became my preferred church. It is where I made sense, and it was where I was most apt to pray, surrender, and trust. I never questioned it, nor did I feel the need to prove or defend it. It did, however, prove interesting territory for research, particularly art-based research, chiefly what engagement in the art of the rehearsal process might reveal about my spiritual experiences. Art-based research proved a solid fit for my inquiry, since it was the rehearsal process itself I would be investigating. Aligning with Shaun's definition, my research would center around the making of art, engagement in the rehearsal process, to see what could be learned about its potential relationship with spirituality. First in a pilot study, then with the cooperation of 4 participating actors, I put forward 3 research questions, 2 of which I highlight here. I set out to learn if the rehearsal process could be a spiritual as well as a creative endeavor, and if it was, how spirituality presented itself. Following my pilot study, I met with 4 actors over the course of 8 weeks. 4 actors engaged in a variety of physical and vocal warm-ups, character prompts, and select monologues, and then I reflected on how and if the work was spiritual. A notable caveat to this study was that it took place during the COVID pandemic. Given the nature of the rehearsal process, I wondered if my research questions would fall flat in a virtual setting. Before I share my experience, I would like to first share with you some select clips of the research in process. In the following clip, the actor playing Linda Lohman is asked to consider where Linda might pause in her monologue. I am struck by how this simple act of deciding where to stop evoked generous thought and emotion. There appear layers behind her reasoning.
Instead of walking, he talks now, pause. And now she's moving into he's driving 700 miles. So there's a break there. Mm-hmm. I think she wants him to just sink in. 700 miles, and when he gets there, I think this is hard for her. It's like when you're about to kind of confess something to someone, when he gets there, no one knows him anymore. Where she's looking directly at him and she's saying, why shouldn't he talk to himself? Like, you know, it's almost like you tell me why you shouldn't, like, I dare you.
In the next clip, the actor has been prompted to talk about why Emily Webb wants to return to Grover's Corners for one day. What begins as an actor's diligent response to the question turns into an impassioned plea where there seems a blur between the actor and Emily. I've watched this clip many times and I struggle seeing where this actor begins and the character ends.
I'm not going to be able to change this. Okay, but there's like a piece of me that feels like, okay, in that writing, maybe she still thinks she can get something, right? We can at least be happy. We're all together. We're here. That's what's important. I can't get any of those other big things that I thought were big, but this is big. Now it's really, I've just got a few moments left and happiness. You know, or just being together, just this.
I come from desire. I come from love of theater. I come from love of self. I come from silliness. I come from, this is my life. I come from a sunbeam.
In this clip, the actor playing Lloyd Dallas explores her character through body, based on a writing prompt where she endeavored to describe Lloyd. I was struck by the connection of her body and voice, how well they work together to tell the story, and how clearly Lloyd's ego and wry humor is exposed. In the clip of the fourth actor, we're reminded that arts evoke emotion. That is not news. For me, the beauty of art and art-based research is that it honors emotion and gives it somewhere to go. There is no shame or need for apology. In this clip, the actor spontaneously refers to a scene in the play where Willie is left alone in a restaurant. She brings her felt empathy for Willie to the monologue.
I picture him in that restaurant. When I read that part, it was so sad. No one wants to feel like that, you know? I was like, I can't believe they just left him there. So sad.
And what goes through a man's mind driving 700 miles without having earned a cent? Why shouldn't he talk to himself? Why? When he has to go to Charlie and borrow $50 a week and pretend to me that it's his pay? How long can that go on? How long?
In the end, virtual engagement proved that when the work is all that matters, the venue in which the work is pursued matters less. However, I did miss sharing the space with the actors and being a physical presence to them when the work became uncomfortable, emotional, or frustrating, all very natural components of creative work. In those instances, I did feel like my hands were tied. Still, the investigation revealed that unpacking the human experience exposes the rawness of being. The responsibility of unpacking characters and their stories evoked intimacy and immediacy. The actors demonstrated empathy and vulnerability in fleshing out their characters and preparing them for performance. Akin qualities such as courage, willingness, spontaneity, imagination, and trust also proved primary to the rehearsal process. In the final clip, I'm going to show the actors are speaking to the research and what they discovered.
There is a connection there. It is spiritual. Maybe it's the definition of what it is to be spiritual, but for me, it means a sense of belonging.
I think my best acting comes when it comes from my breath, and I allow it to manifest.
The integration of the spiritual, physical, emotional, I think there's a little magic there.
I feel like I get put back together, you know what I mean? But there's a centering, an alignment, a release, and a joy. It allows me to feel complete.
I think an actor needs to understand all of us somehow overlap. By discovering characters, no matter if we can relate to them or not, we're discovering ourselves. You're talking about transcending your own personality and somehow getting out of your own person and letting in another person and allowing that to happen through a process you can't entirely explain. And to me, that is the sort of essence of spiritual, which is like that there are some higher kind of energies going around.
I don't act. Yep. I am not alive.
In closing, I would just like to thank Shaun. There are two gentle reminders that I keep close to my heart that you taught me. Hold with soft hands and trust the process. And I repeat those mantras very often. Thank you, Shaun.
Thank you, Dory, for your wonderful work and allowing us to see it. It was beautiful.
Thank you.
Look forward to reading the whole dissertation. I'm going to move us along and introduce Dina Fried, who's the director of the MA program in special ed at Herzog.
There's a connection there. It is spirit.
Dina Fried, director of the MA program in special ed at Herzog College in Israel. Dina.
Hi, thank you so much. So today is a nice closure because three of my committee members are here. Deborah and Vivian, and of course, Shaun McNiff. So I would like to thank you for this wonderful opportunity because this is a journey that I've started and I feel that I'm still starting. It's just a continuing journey, which I'm enjoying every moment, I must say. So thank you very, very much. And I would like to talk about what I've been researching. I started it with my PhD. And I've been moving through different research inquiries, but all have the same kind of a connection, which is what I want to talk about today. And that is the responsive approach, or just the conversations between researcher and co-researcher for deepening and enriching understanding of lifelong disabilities. So I kind of started it with my PhD. But I have continuing with social rejection and now started with my postdoc regarding special education and in education and using art-based research there as well. So all the pictures that you will see and videos are from the different research that I've been doing and our responses that I've been making. So when I set on my way for this research, took me time to get what Shaun McNiff was talking about. And after working many months, Shaun McNiff, we had a very hard discussion where he said, Dina, this is not it. And we had to throw it all away. And I had to start all over again. And I think that's when I really, truly realized what Shaun meant when he said, art is as a mode of inquiry. It wasn't just dissecting or just analyzing, but really looking to see how art can transform, how it can change, how it can evolve. It wasn't just about what they were making. It was about this whole process that was coming out of making the art and about me being part of it as a researcher. I felt it was such a wonderful opportunity that I can be part of it, then I can help them be part of it, and that they were part of it, because at the end of the day, I felt that what I really wanted to do is I wanted to hear their story. I wanted their story to be told. And for people who have disabilities, words is not always the best way for them to communicate. So having another way, another mode for them to communicate was amazing. And it was a great opportunity. So this one question that goes with me in every research, every art-based research that I'm kind of part of is this: how does a responsive approach by which researchers respond to participants enrich our understanding of lifelong disabilities regarding the different sections that I've been researching? And so the use of response art in art-based research builds on the concept of our conversation by incorporating art creating by the researcher in response to that created by the participants into the methodology of the study. And I have to say that in Israel, that's very controversial. It's new. It's something that not yet accepted always through all the art-based and art therapy communities. So I feel this is very important for us to kind of like bring this out and have this come and published and give this a voice. Response art allows for communications between the researcher and co-researchers about their experiences, their life situation, the obstacles and challenges that they face. These pictures that you see here, and this picture is from research done on social rejection. And so we can see how we'll see their reactions soon. I'll show you things that they have said. So through response art, research can express their understanding of the participants' experiences without preconceived notions or judgments entering into the response. Response art helps the researcher to focus more on the artistic process than on a human subject, contributing to the objectivity of the research. And one of the research that Van Licht did, which I really liked, and one of his things that he had to say in the end was that art responses help to realize the role of art making in the recovery process, creating a space for renewed sense of self in participants, which was what I was in the end, what I was looking for. I wanted to find if we can create new relationships with our disabilities, if we can change the way we conceive, the way we see, so we can find maybe a place for hope or growth, even with lifelong disabilities that are just there, they're not going to go anywhere. But art can enable us to kind of get a different take of it. So this is sort of like the way I work. This is an example for my doctorate. You can see how participants created. I responded. My response was also through video, which I'll show you an example, and through art. And through all this, I kind of took all their response. I took the participants, everything that they have said about how they felt that I responded to their art. And the things that came out was that they felt that they were acknowledged, that at a place where they can differentiate between their experiences, that someone responding to their art kind of enabled them to pick the things that they wanted to take from that journey, the things that they didn't notice before. And now that someone else was responding, they could notice these things. It enhanced their perceptions with the willingness to share. They felt in a safe space, the ability to recollect and focus, and someone reflecting and then reflecting back. And so I would like to show you, tell me if this is working. Kind of an example.
Unicorns are real. Finding that book in my parents' library hit me hard. The subtitle was about learning disabilities. My parents think I'm handicapped, impaired, painful. Daydreaming. I was very smart, good reader, good student. But I love to dream. Never very organized. Always late. I don't remember the lows in America. Just since making Aliyah. it was then that I really needed it. Really need an explanation why everything is so hard.
So I would like to end with something that one of my participants wrote. Oh, wait, sorry. And kind of gives me a reason why I continue doing this and why I believe that this is very important work. The shock, almost that you've shown someone else, the innermost working of your mind, of your soul, it is a mirror, someone holding up a mirror, but not an impersonal mirror, not with the exactness and quality of a mirror, with a kind of compassion. Because what's amazing about the third picture is that Dina's soul is in there too. It's not her just reflecting my soul back to me as in, I peeked inside you and this is what I saw. But it is her being prepared somehow to put her soul in there too. So it's like both of our souls are on the line here. So I thought it was just a great opportunity to thank Shaun for helping me start this journey. And I feel it is so important for all the people and for myself that we're working. And there is so much yet to gain from art-based research. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dina. It's great to hear that you're continuing this work. And it becomes more and more obvious as we watch these presentations that art is the evidence that moves us. I'm going to invite now our last presenter, Michal Lev, who's on the faculty at ASA Orono College in Israel, and she's going to present her research that she did with Shaun. Michal.
Thank you, Mitchell. I'm very, very happy to see you all from across the world, honoring the extraordinary work and legacy of Shaun McNiff. Shaun has actually made me the researcher that I am, fascinated and always enthusiastic, not only because of his virtues as an academic, his graceful writing and leader of ABR. Most of your researchers know how significant an advisor can be. I was absolutely stunned by his total devotion to making me a better scholar. And let me tell you, after rewriting my lit review for the third time, I was not as nice as I may seem now. So the privilege of your guidance, Shaun, included some deep personal conversations that continue to ripple and guide me on my way. With you, research becomes a valorous journey, which sanctifies the principles of scientific research, search, and search again. So using your vocabulary, I invite you to take a pause, and I promise to be terse. In the next 10 minutes, I will present the method of my research, working closely with Shaun, and I will focus on the primacy of video, how it enables empirical inquiry, presents art evidence, affirms participants, furthers memory, and how significant it was in identifying my outcomes. So my goal in planning the research method was choosing inquiry modes that could address the topic of intimacy, not an easy topic to research. I worked with 4 participant co-researchers in this project, 3 painters and an art therapist. I designed 6 interdependent modes of inquiry. First one, 3 experimental sessions of painting by co-researchers, to which I was a witness, sitting just a little behind them while they painted. Second one, reflective discussion with each co-researcher immediately after they painted. Third one was my own artistic responses to the session and the process of inquiry as a whole. Fourth mode was a private exhibition for myself alone. The 5th one, and this is where I'm going to get in, creating edited videos. And the 6th one was culminating discussions and review with co-researchers that included viewing the edited videos, and a verbal discussion about the research questions and findings. I think it was Aby who said that, you know, verbal expression is a form of linear communication taking place in a column in time, right? One word follows the other to form a sentence. So for someone like me who does not speak English as a mother tongue, artistic expression is a language unbound to these rules. This form of expression replicates an experience and can therefore be formulated with a different interpretation of time and space, as this following video demonstrates. So I hope you enjoy it. I'll just share my screen. And I want to first share what my desk looked like when I worked. So you're now looking at Adobe Premiere Pro 2022. Everyone who has actually worked and edited videos can see this as a familiar screen. It has audio files, video files in blue, graphics in pink, etc. And so now I'm going to share what it looks like, and I hope you enjoy it.
Co-researchers were being witnessed painting in their private studio spaces for 60 minutes in 3 experimental sessions. Each session was then followed by a discussion. A GoPro video camera was attached to the participants' foreheads while they painted. This allowed a clear angle on their hands and creative process. Using the GoPro camera as I did allowed documentation without ethical restrictions. The video also relieved me from the need to document in writing, so I could focus on journaling what was going on within me. The video files uploaded to my computer formed a supportive backrest. I could go back to specific moments within the experimental modes of inquiry and see them for myself. Video was significant in enhancing memory, reliving the moment, reenacting sensations. The angle from which the video is filmed was crucial in revealing information. Placing the GoPro camera on the participants' foreheads enables viewing footage from an eye position. I, as the viewer, can see as they see. To my great surprise, video is crucial in inviting and enhancing intimacy. The process of editing footage revealed and strengthened what the co-researchers defined as intimate moments. These were signified by a slower rhythm of motion, fewer hand movements, and a steady grip on the painting tool. During such moments, the head-mounted camera movements were much slower, and the proximity of the camera lens to the painting was very close. Such moments were underscored by moments taking place before and after them that showed faster handwork, a more rapid pace, and quicker movements toward and away from the painting. the subjects on the frame were usually smaller during such moments because of a greater distance between the head-mounted camera and the painting. While watching the edited videos, these pauses were understood to be brief breaks that they refer to as non-intimate moments. They explained that their prolonged deep focus and immersion in painting required taking breaks, and that once they had done so, they could go back to painting. The edited videos helped participants see these moments throughout their painting routines and identify the features that facilitated intimate experience. During the culminating sessions with co-researchers after they viewed the edited videos, they admitted that the angle and perspective of the shots made the development of their paintings seem tangible. This led them, as viewers, to zoom in on the painting hand, identify with it, and feel as if they were taking an active part in the painting processes of other participants. Their experience was intimate and close. They attested to feeling empathy and closeness as they zoomed in on the image that was shown on the screen. I used video for presenting my outcomes. While presentation of most research is done in writing, I found that the edited video can demonstrate results clearly and explicitly. Throughout my dissertation, I placed brackets of video timelines that served as empirical evidence which validated the written ideas visually and also strengthened the outcomes.
Thank you, Shaun.
Thank you, Michal. I think we fixed the technical issues, and I think we got the essence of the research. Thank you to all the presenters today that were here, honoring the work of Dr. Shaun McNiff and his legacy over the many, many decades. I'm going to turn this over to Vivian Marco-Spicer.
Oh, I echo Mitchell's thanks to all of our presenters. I thank all of the audience for being here. We have several more in our series on research on the arts webinars coming up. There's one coming up in March, another in April, and then a new one in May on performance in research, performance as research. So I hope that those of you who aren't already members of IACATE will join up today so you can avail yourself of all of these webinars for free. And thank you, Shaun. Thank you, Shaun. Thank you, Mitchell. Thank you, Ross. Thank you, Dina. Thank you, Michal. Thank you, Abby. Thank you, Dory. Thank you all. And now the time has come to say goodbye. So,
and
goodbye.
thank you, Vivian.